Well, we've reached the top of the hour now, so we're actually going to formally welcome everyone to today's webinar. And today we're going to be looking at emerging technologies to engage with customers. I think it's going to be a fascinating look at things that are going to be impacting on the market overall. So delighted to welcome to you two panelists. Delighted to welcome back Richard Snow from Ventana Research. Richard, you've been now with Ventana for about 14 years, is that right?
15 years I've been there now. So been covering contact centers from an analyst perspective for 15 years and spent 15 years before that building them. So yeah, I've been in the contact center world a long time.
So around the blocks. And I'm also delighted to welcome to her first webinar with us to Tracy Hendy from Puzzle, who's joining us as a panelist, an expert commentator. If people aren't familiar with Puzzle as an organization, what sort of products do Puzzle provide?
Puzzle are a cloud contact center solution provider. We've been in the industry for up to 15 years, relatively new in the UK, probably in the last 5 years. We have some quite high profile customers. We work across most verticals: retail, utilities, manufacturing. So we've got quite, and within the team that we've got within Puzzle in the UK, we've got quite a breadth of knowledge. Lots of the guys here have come from different industries and a lot of background and a lot of experience.
Excellent. Well, if you want to watch a copy of today's webinar, you can do that. callcenterhelp.com recorded-webinars from about 4 o'clock today. If you're not already logged into our chat room, the address is callcenterhelper.com/chat. Here's the address here, very easy to get into. Just need to put in your first name, last name, and email. And it does help if you have once you're logged in, if you have the screen on one side and split your window. They are two separate applications. So you have the screen on one side and the chat room on the other side of the screen is the way that most people do it. There's an added advantage being in the chat room, as well as carrying on the discussion, is that you can download the webinar slides. So if you do that on this particular part of the screen. There is an added advantage for being logged in that we have a bottle of champagne. Here's the latest one that we've just got delivered, which will be going out later on today. Rather nice bottle of Brut Reserve in there. Or if you prefer a box of chocolates or an Amazon gift card, we could ship that out elsewhere. So if you'd like to use hashtag question for a question or hashtag tip for a tip. And the question that we're currently asking in the chat room is, what are your views of chatbots in the contact center? So if you'd just like to put your response, do you think they're a good thing? Do you think they're part of the future? Do you think they are liable to have problems? Just in 1 or 2 words, if you'd like to put your views of what do you think of chatbots in the contact center. And we're going to be running a poll. We'll come back to the question about the chatbots, and just want to launch a poll, which is which channels do you currently support in your contact center? Do you support voice, email, chat, social, or SMS? So if you'd just like to vote on which channels you currently support within your contact center, we'll be very interesting to see. Richard, I think I've seen a big interest in chat. Do you think it's widely deployed out there?
I'd be absolutely surprised if we don't see most people supporting chat. I think certainly amongst the younger generation, and I always quote, and I will quote her again, my daughter, who's 25, she seems to have lost her voice and everything was chat. So yeah, a huge amount of interest now and very popular.
Well, let's have a look at the results and share those up on the screen. Voice 84%, email voice 94%, email 84%, 57% chat, 46% social, 27% text or SMS. So Tracy, chat there is now over 50%, which is, I think, the first time I've seen that. Does that surprise you?
No, not at all. It's an effective way for customers to contact you. Certainly at times when the agents can be busy. So, for example, if I was going to contact a service provider of mine, and I needed to do it at a busy time, say on a Monday morning or a lunchtime, I'd certainly look to use chat rather than call to save waiting in the queue.
There's an interesting program on TV yesterday where Rob Gilbert was looking at what shy people do, and one of the instances that someone quoted there was that shy people don't like phoning contact centres. But I think chat could be an easier way for people to get in touch. Let's have a look at the views on chatbots in the contact centre. Ches says they have their uses for quick queries or lookup responses. They're not good though for complex complaints, escalations, or queries. Julian has said we don't currently in health and dental insurance use chatbots due to the complexity of the questions that our agents have to answer. Alex said I think they'll take over relatively repetitive tasks but won't replace humans in the future. Andy said we don't use chatbots yet, however we're using live chat and seeing an increase in uptake. Andy works in the utilities sector. Ari said chatbots are definitely part of the future. However, I think most people or organizations do not have a real understanding of the technology and its uses. And Peter says chatbots are absolutely the future in my opinion. So Richard, it sounds like the sort of the common thread there is chatbots are fine for simple stuff, but nothing overly complex.
Again, I will talk about this a bit later, but I think that's the current feeling, you know. And it was interesting from a previous post you had that, you know, people were looking at it and tend to have a look at it as it's an efficiency. You can improve the efficiency. I'll put my hand up and say the wrong approach. This is all about meeting customer needs. It's not about improving efficiency. And I think there is potential to go beyond just doing simple things with chat. But it's limited, you know, there's a limited number of characters and people have got to type. So I think it is the part of the future, but could be more than just improving efficiency.
I wonder if things like out of hours coverage could be quite a good one, saying our contact center is currently closed, but can we help you online? I certainly had that yesterday where I needed a password reset and the contact center was closed. I'd have quite happily gone through with a chatbot to validate things there. Right, so I think now is probably a good chance then, Richard, since I think you're going to be covering chatbots as part of your presentation. If we pass the baton across to you, and if you'd like to take us through what you think are going to be the first examples of emerging technology.
Yeah. I better go back to screen one. Sorry.
Let me just put it back. Oh, there we go. That's fine.
Here we go. Well, hello everyone, and give my welcome to everybody. I think it's going to be an exciting hour, and hope you all join in. I'm going to share with you some of the research I've carried out into what we call next generation customer experience, which showed us the current use of technology and some trends. So first of all, I'm going to put this in the context of, I think we all know, you know, life is changing. It's not just contact center. Life is changing. People have changed. The way people communicate with each other has changed. The way they engage with each other and companies has changed. And what we've seen is that's changed the priorities for companies. So you can see on this piece of research that confirmation that you know, companies now expect to increasingly compete through customer experience, and service, product and brand value are falling as ways of competing. So you know, the way you engage with your customers, the experience you give to those customers during engagement is going to be vitally important moving forward. And to chat boxes, they would go under customer service, self-service, and what we can see is down the bottom is a lot of companies expecting that to be increasingly the kind of channels they do use to engage with customers, and so much so that we reckon we forecast in the next 2 years that digital channels, as they're now probably called, are going to take over as the main channels. But from the poll and from what I'm going to show, not yet. I haven't quite taken over yet. And going back to this change, what we see is that it's crystallized in what we believe customers now expect. And I've fortunately came up with a nice new acronym. The customers want epic engagement. So first and foremost, they want it to be easy. You know, nobody's got time to fuss about and try and work out how to do things, work out how to use the technology. So they want it to be easy. They want it to be low effort, and that includes using the channel they want to use and doing it when they want. Just like John G wants to change his password, you know, at midnight. You know, that's our life now. So the first thing you've got to think about is making it easy for customers. And they want it to be personalized. You know, I've only been with my cell phone operator for 30 years. They've never recognized me as an individual. I'm just somebody who rings up and complains all the time and asks why my bill's wrong. So it would be very lovely if they could actually recognize me and then do the next thing, which put my current engagement in a context of the journey I've had, the relationship I've got with that company. I do know for a fact that I am now their longest standing customer. I did have the third mobile phone in England with them. But do they know that? Do they recognize that? No. Do they proactively reach out to me? No. So what you need to do is think about putting every interaction, every engagement in a context of, you know, your customer's journey and the relationship you have with them. And finally, I'd love, I'm sure you'd all love things to be consistent. So again, using a personal example, my bank here in the UK was one of the first to go to multi-channel, first to give me 4 options to get the balance of my account, which was fantastic. The problem is that 3 out of the 4 amounts are different. And so what does that result in? That results in me swapping channels to try and get the real answer, which degrades my customer sat, degrades my experience. So we would say when you're looking at this, you need to look at providing epic experiences. And so to share a piece of research, going back to the poll, we asked companies that participated in the survey, which channels do they support? Now, this is probably now, what, 6, maybe 9 months old. And so, as I've said and indicated on the poll, things are changing really rapidly. But what hasn't changed is that the common channels are still the phone and email. So you have to go on supporting those. But things like chat, things like using mobile apps, using chat boxes, text messaging, and video are becoming increasingly used. And so they're channels you have to consider implementing. And, you know, we have 10 here, and what we could see from the results of the companies now supporting 8. In a sense, the bad news for most people listening is that they implement many of these channels thinking that it'll take away interactions from other channels. Afraid that doesn't appear to be true. The net result of having new channels is you increase the number of interactions. And what we can see from this chart was the percentage of companies expecting significant growth. And by significant growth, we classified that as more than 10% growth over the next 2 years in each of the channels. So we can see a shift happening here. But even then, the classic channels of the website and social are growing more than anything else. And white mail, people stop writing to each other. That's going to see the lowest growth. But in every one of those channels, companies are expecting to see some growth. And I'll just make a reference back to Chatbox, because we've been looking at Chatbox, which kind of reflects what people have put in the chat room, which is, yeah, it has started some take up. Companies like yourselves are trying it, but it hasn't yet taken off. It's, there's still companies only expecting 6% growth. So it's a new channel. It will grow more. One of the points I've also seen as a big change since I started off in contact centers more than 30 years ago, the whole idea then of a contact center was customers are contacting the organization in a scattered way. So people would be talking to finance, talking to service, talking to marketing, talking to finance. And so one of the ideas of the contact center was bring it all together, centralize it, and again, make it more efficient. But now what we've seen is we're seeing a reverse, and people going back to business groups, actually proactively getting involved with handling customer interactions. And so here you can see this is the percentage of organizations saying these business groups and these different and people in different locations saying face-to-face, home or mobile workers getting involved with proactively engaging with customers. And one of the drivers we can see for that is that companies want to increase first contact resolution rates. So if you get through to an agent in the old days, they would say, I don't know the answer to that, I'll get somebody to get back to you. These days, they want to, and we expect them to pass it to somebody who has got the answer. And that's why more experts, knowledge experts in back office business groups are getting involved. So think of customer engagement, customer experience as an enterprise issue, not just in your contact center or just in customer service. So that all takes us into the main meat of the conversation we're going to have, because we've got all these customers using all of those different channels, engaging with all those different business groups within an organization. And so, what's in the middle? I kind of flipped on two charts there. My fingers are a bit heavy. So, and I'm going to break that into two sections, and we're going to take a break in the middle to get your views and thoughts. I've called it emerging technologies, and the other one I will classify as innovative technologies. Perhaps I should now have thought about it, actually gone emerged technologies, so ones that are already here and being used a lot, and those which are just being taken up. So four of those that I've got here, and I'm just not going to. I'll go through each of those in a little more depth. So text, voice, natural language. We've talked, as I said, my daughter, once upon a time gave up talking. Everything she did was using basically WhatsApp or text messaging, even to the extent that her bedroom is above my home office. She would send me a Facebook message asking me to bring a cup of tea. And then I'd shout a rude word back. She'd send me a text message saying, I didn't hear that, Dad, what did you say? So that's what she used to be doing. But I've actually seen a shift in that now, going on to voice and voice input, because now everything for her is about asking Siri to do things. So she's even stopped using Google even, or any other search engine, and she wants to ask Siri. So she asks Siri things which personally I'd never even thought that I would ask Siri to do. So I might want to set a 10-minute timer when I'm cooking something. I'll set my clock or stopwatch running on my mobile phone, My daughter will just say to Siri, can you tell me when 10 minutes is up? If I want to get somewhere, I'll go into Google Maps and find where I want to go to and get the directions. My daughter now will say, Siri, can you tell me how to get to this place? So, you know, we shouldn't just be thinking of his voice as the telephone, but more thinking about, and again, back to chat boxes, people actually talking to technology. And I think that's why I think it's going to be part of the future. That means as an organization, you have to start looking at natural language processing. So being able to understand, interpret, access, analyze, you know, voice and text inputs. So you can do things like understanding customer sentiment, understanding the use of common phrases, identifying trends. So that's one of the technologies which is probably really quite hot at the moment, is using natural language processing just to interpret voice that's been converted to text and interpreting text messages. So then my next one was the emergence of the CEP. And I'm often asked that by many people come to me and say, well, this whole CX thing, which system do I need to employ to deliver excellent customer experiences? And that might be, you know, is it CRM? Is it an ACD? Is it, you know, a chat box? And the answer is no. There's no one system that can deliver a customer experience. The way we phrase it is you need to have a convergence, and some might say the integration between 4 different types of systems. And under each of these is multiple systems. So you need all the systems to manage those channels. Those channels don't happen by accident. They have systems to manage them. So if you have 8 channels, you've got 8 different systems. And so they need to be connected. They need to be integrated. They need to converge. But you've got to run this thing. As we said, there's still a lot of calls going to be handled by humans. And so you need to have the right humans in place. So you need things like workforce optimization. So you can look at previous patterns of handling interactions and make sure you have the right numbers and right skilled number of people in place to handle those. But you do need these things, as we call the systems of record. So humans and technologies, digital technology, are going to go to CRM systems to get data about customers. They're going to go to billing systems to find out about people's bills. They're going to go to knowledge management systems to get information about different things. And so you need to, you know, they need to be connected in, they need to be converged in. And underneath it all is you need analytics. You need to understand this. As I've said, put interactions into a journey. Well, you can't understand a journey unless you can capture all this data and say, this customer has been contacting me 10 times about these subjects over these different channels, and these were the outcomes. With all the volumes of interactions going on now, you have to look at analytics. And as I said, these need to be converged, they need to be integrated, they need to share data, they need to support processes which you probably run disconnected in the past. So the pattern I always give, you know, if I get an email from a company saying I've got a fantastic new product and here it is, so wonderful, click here to buy. I click here to buy, and the person I speak to or the technology I speak to doesn't give me the same message. I get confused. Then maybe I go off and buy it, and it doesn't do what either of them said. So I want to ring up and complain or find out how it's going to work. So we need to start looking at the connecting, integrating these systems so you can connect those processes so you can deliver on the journey. So that means that the life of agents gets very complicated. How many of you sitting there have an agent desktop that looks like the one on the left? Multiple systems they need to access to get all this data. You know, convergence of four types of systems, 4 sets of systems with multiple systems underneath, and agents may have to get to all of them. So many a desktop I've seen looks like the one on the left. And what we want to transition to is something that looks more like the one on the right. So the whole systems architecture is hidden. There's single sign-on, so an agent just can sit down and say, this is me, and the system knows who they are, what they're allowed to access, what type of data they're allowed to get to. It's got to be an intuitive user interface. I often say to many vendors that I talk to, you know, have you got a user guide? And when they say, oh, yes, we've got a user guide, I say, well, it can't be easy enough to use, because I should be able to just pick it up and use it. You want and now you can get a desktop because it can guide agents into best practice. So you can learn over the time the best way to handle a complaint, the best way to handle a call about a product. These can be programmed into the desktop and guide the agent on best practice. And even now you can go one step further than that, and we'll come back to this. You can make them smarter. So they can analyze that actual conversation or the chat session and say and pass back to the agent, this is what you should do next, based on that information. And the last thing they can do now is to look at is be able to connect agents with those business groups. So again, as I've said, you know, I ring up, I want to query my bill. The agent most agents can't do anything about that, but they know they need to connect to somebody in finance who can say, yes, it's Mr. Snow, he's a platinum customer, give him a credit. So they're emerging very fast. And as I've said, the next one is the technology, is analytics, which is, we have seen the fastest growth. In fact, we see it as the technology can have the most impact on customer experience, because it gives organizations such as yourselves a view of what's actually going on. But you need to look at analytics and can handle structured and unstructured data. So it can get the CRM data, which has got a prefixed format, and it's quite relatively easy to access. But accessing things like voice recordings, text-based scripts, you need technologies that can process that. Increasingly, organizations look for root cause, so understand why the customer is called. I often ask many customers, do you know why your customers call you? You'd be absolutely surprised at the relatively few percent that actually know that. And so, you know, I find it's an essential thing. Understand why your customers are calling you and do something about it. And then increasingly look at predictive. So based on that data, what might I be able to do to prevent interactions in the future? And as I come back and keep repeating, all analytics can produce those journey maps. So they can say to you, you know, what has happened in the past, and connect that with the predictive as what might happen in the future. I can't talk about analytics without going big data, because it's the big topic. Big data is not just volume. It is volume, but it's all these different types. You must be able to process all those different types of data, and you must have those kind of capabilities like root cause and predictive. And so they're my 4 emerging technologies. So I think we're going to take a break, Jonty, and get some discussion going.
Hi, Jonty, you appear to be on mute at the moment.
There we go. And very interesting, the comment that Richard made about understand why your customers contact you. One of the pieces of work we did a little while ago with Richard was we brainstormed what were the biggest problems affecting contact centers. And number one was, which we built into what we call the Contact Center Manifesto. If you go to the front page of Call Center Help, it's been up there for about 3 months now. And here, number 1 article, learn why customers contact you. And we've got then a whole article there, a whole series of articles on what you can do to understand more about that. So we're now going to jump across to a quick poll, and we're going to be asking, of the 4 technologies we've covered so far, which technology do you think is most suitable for use in your organization? Do you think it's natural language processing? Do you think it's a customer experience platform? Do you think it's a smart desktop? Or do you think it is analytics? So it'd be very interesting to see which one you think is most suitable for your organization. Tracy, do you have any thoughts what you think the voting may go on?
I think possibly a customer experience platform, because customer journey is a very hot topic at the moment. Everybody wants to understand their customer journey and improve on that. So I think that's probably going to come out top.
Okay, well, let's have a look at how the voting is going. It certainly looks like very close. It looks like largely a three-way race here. So we'll just share the results. So analytics has it by a nudge on 29%, smart desktop 27%, customer experience platform very narrowly in third place there on 26%. There's not much in any of these, and natural language processing. So Richard, surprises me here. There's not a sort of clear leader.
I'm quite surprised. I would have, if you'd have asked me the question you asked Wendy, I'd have gone with analytics. So I might just put my hand up and say there, well, that might consult sports minds research. But I think it's back to a comment we've made and discussions we had in the past, which is things are changing so fast. I mean, understanding these technologies and what they can be used for, I think is a real big issue for organizations. But and so people are looking at their priorities and selecting the technologies which meet those priorities.
Well, we've had lots of tips and lots of questions, so let's go and have a look at the chat room and see what has come up. So the first question has been sent in by Tom, which is, which emerging technology will provide or most provide an improved customer experience? Richard, I'm going to bounce this one across to you. Any thoughts on which one you think will improve customer experience most?
I probably have a little bias here, but the best experience and best technology I've seen is kind of even an advance on chat box. So voice-driven video is an amazing technology. But I think the key thing has got to be, is go back to my point, we wouldn't have the phrase customers hate IVR if we set up IVR to do what customers want. I think we have the opportunity, all of you have an opportunity to take some of these digital channels and set them up the way customers want. And then in a time short, we're all short of time. And I think, customers will use it. If my daughter could just go, hey, why is my bill wrong? That's what she would do.
Well, let's have a look at some of the opinions coming in on chatbots. Chris said, I divide chatbots into two categories, those that provide general information and those that fulfill a function. I differentiate, for example, between a bank's chatbot that allows balance inquiries compared to a chatbot that gives general answers to questions about a company and can't get user-specific responses. So I'd see the general kind of answers of that kind of bot as less useful, and I'd say it's more effective to have the information presented more clearly on website. Where they can fulfill a specific function, though, I'd see them as useful even if they can't do the advanced work. And Trace, that ties very in with a question on chatbots that's come in from Gillian, which is that I need to better understand the advantage for a customer to use a chatbot rather than self-service on an intuitive website. Why would a chatbot be better? What's your thought on that one, Tracy?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And to some extent, self-serve can help, but if you don't fully understand exactly what it is that you need to query, or the actual query may develop further, then I see then a chatbot would help, because what a chatbot does, it has a couple of different options, and it can use those different options to work out what is the most appropriate answer. Whereas self-serve, you could be checking some FAQs or using a knowledge base on the website. So So yeah, that's a good point. But what you need to understand is what kind of questions, and it's going back to what John said earlier. What are your what requests are coming into your contact centre, and what's the best way to service those requests?
Indeed. And we've had a question in from Chris who says, do you think the increase that, Richard, you mentioned of the increased traffic across all channels is a result of more demand for customer service, or because poorly implemented customer service? Are people being bounced between channels without a solution, or are they actually asking more questions, or is it both? Richard, your thoughts?
It's a very interesting question, Chris. I think I'll go to your second point, because we have this great debate going on at the moment. Are we in a multi-channel world, or are we in an omni-channel world? I firmly come down on the side that we're in an omni-channel world, because if I go back to the CEP, today's equivalent is lots of technologies handling different channels that are disconnected. So as I said, I get 3 different balances for my checking account because those channels are disconnected. I think organizations actually need to move to omni-channel. We need to get that consistency of response. We need to be in that kind of omni-channel. Then I think the second problem goes away. And I think then if I go back to what Tracy was saying, and what I firmly believe, if you program these things to do what customers want and get it right, then that will improve both volumes and deliver what customers expect. So I think the key here is always to take, we hear lots about being customer centric, but I'll go back to that basics. Understand why customers are contacting you, and work out the best way to handle it, or even actually get rid of the problem. If you see multiple customers ringing up about how does a product work, then give them better user manuals or make it easier to use. Those kind of things can have a bigger impact than trying to actually deal with interactions. And
I hate to put up an article for every question that's asked, but we did actually answer this question in Call Center Helper, which is, does self-service really reduce call volumes? And which is exactly what we were sort of talking about here. And the actual answer is sometimes actually putting in self-service will actually increase call volumes, because you often open up a demand that wasn't there before. A good case with my pension providers used to send me a statement once a year, which I used to accept. Once they then made it online, you could see the hidden charges more easily, which then generated a whole lot of other queries that I had about why did these charges suddenly come in, when I actually noticed my pension went down and the market went up, which was quite an interesting one. Right, let's have a couple more tips. Don has sent in a couple of tips. Keep updating the macros for new information coming in from chat agents, so it could have its library updated. It would have the human feel too, because it's based on old interactions. And I certainly think there's a piece here missing, that you've got lots and lots of answers to lots of questions that you have on your chat system, but a lot of it doesn't get it into the knowledge base. And Don's also got another one saying proper programming of the artificial intelligence is the key. The chatbot can learn pretty much any information, including the human connection side, just as long as we keep updating and developing the program. Gather all responses from the past three months or 6 months if you have a chat channel. Then from there, organize the responses provided by your customers, then line them up with the responses provided by our agent. The first part would be triggered by keywords, selective reading by the chatbot. If in case you have an AI program, it will record all other information apart from the previous macros you sent on the system, and it will do the same categorization as those for new information. So I think, Tracy, that's all about keeping the information up to date and actually drilling down in stuff you've already got in the organization.
Yeah, and that's feeding back into the comments that have been made previously around analysis of what information's been given, what's been asked, and calibration as well. So ensuring that actually what information is being given by the chatbot is appropriate to the question. So there's always an element of calibration associated with any form of analytics.
Indeed. So Richard, if we bounce back to you now, and if we look at your two emerged technologies, your innovative technologies, I think you've got a number to share with us. If you'd like to put the slides up on your screen.
Yep, I'm going to go on to my innovative technologies, and I have to apologise. I haven't got a power supply, and my laptop's about to go flat. So, could you just talk amongst yourself for 20 seconds while I go and get a power supply? I'll get cut off.
Okay, right. We'll go through that. Okay, I will jump back. We have another question that's been sent in, and that question is: do you think people in general are more comfortable talking to a machine now than to a live person? Do you think, Tracy, that people prefer machines to humans?
I think it depends. I think it depends on the demographic, the age of the audience, and also the kind of requests. So, for example, if it's a long, drawn-out, complex request, they may prefer to speak to a human being because then they believe they're being understood and they're being responded to correctly. If somebody's got a query around something that's a bit sensitive, they may prefer to do that via web chat. So it really depends. It depends on the situation, the person generating the request, and what's being discussed. Really,
I agree with that, but I do worry that if we replace everything with machines rather than live agents, the problem is that the day that you need to speak to a real person, for instance, if you're caught in a trap, I think there was an old adage that said you can't hear people scream in the IVR system.
Yeah. There's always going to be that question that's got to be answered by a human, because there's no computer that has the capabilities that the human brain does.
Indeed. Well, I think we've got Richard back online now. So, Richard, if you'd like to pop your slides up on your screen, and there we go.
Now, folks, just to prove that we are live.
There we are.
So I'm going to quickly get into my innovative technologies, which I'm going to go through: video, robotic process automation, IoT, AI and machine learning, and finish off with bots in general. So quick views on each of those. So I kind of already touched on that video, I think, is one of those really emerging technologies, and we're not talking about just video calls. So 5 years ago, it probably wouldn't unheard of to do a webinar like this with actually seeing people. And so that's increasing. But what we're seeing is in the customer experience place is more use of embedded video clips. So from a marketing perspective, rather than sending out a long email explaining a product, just sending an email out with a video clip in it. And in customer support, customer ringing up saying, I can't understand how to use this product, and rather than the agent trying to explain it, actually just downloading or emailing them the video. So those kind of things. And as I quickly touched on, I've now seen the emergence of interactive video. So it's actually talking to an animated character that deals with your inquiry, deals with your interaction. And again, it's a common point, and I think we've made it in different ways, but programmed correctly, they can be absolutely amazing. So robotic process automation. So this is the first point I've got to say. I've shown it as a robot, but it's not a robot. Robotic process automation is software. It's rather smart software, and what it is software that can recognize and then be programmed to carry out tasks that are pretty common and pretty simple. And the one that's most often quoted to me and used is, so not it's not unusual these days. If somebody rings up a contact center and says, I've changed my address, then the agent will change the address, maybe in the CRM system, and then we'll have some after call work, which will go and update the rest of the systems with that name and address change. Well, using robotic process automation, you can program some software to do that, and which basically says, I've just spotted an agent's done a name and address change. Now I need to go and replicate that in all these different systems. So these kind of technologies really are the kind of technologies which, go back to another point, can improve the efficiency of handling interactions. These days, you can't talk about emerging technologies, innovative technologies, without talking about the Internet of Things. Our research again says that most companies haven't quite figured out yet how this is going to impact on customer service, customer experience. But what there is no doubt is that we're getting more and more devices connected. So, you can have your whole house and all the devices in it connected up, and that can be processing data back to a company. Well, that means yet another set of data sources to be accessed, to be analyzed, to be used. And where we see this having the greatest use is being able to go from what is currently mostly a, customer contact centers, customer service is mostly about it's reactive. So if the customer asks us something, we tell them, or, but in this kind of environment, you can start moving to a proactive customer experience, which can increase customer sat, but again can avoid the future problems. And so simple things might be, if you have your house connected and everything in your house connected, that and the system sees that you're out most of the day, but you leave the heating on at, to have it at 80 degrees, that they might send you a message saying perhaps you might want to turn it off and save some money. So the Internet of Things, I think, is still really just emerging in a customer experience space, but I think it has good potential for giving the information to drive proactive customer engagement. So I'm going to finish off with the technologies, so I call them Sci-Fi technologies. So the AI, the machine learning, and the bots. And again, just to make the point, we are not talking about replacing people in contact centers with R2D2 or other robots. We are talking about smart software, as I put it. And it's quite interesting. Go back to the questions and tips on AI. We have enormous debates internally. What is AI? And so I thought I'd go to Wikipedia and get the definitive version. So you can see what Wikipedia talks it about. But it's all back to actually the point that somebody made. It's using that data and being able to learn and then take decisions, make decisions based on all the data that's been collected. And we put that into two categories, which again nicely fits back to some points in the chat room, and which is that you can make humans smarter, but actually you can make machines more human. So making humans smarter, again, if I go back to the desktop, we can have artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies that sit behind that, analyze all the data, collect all the data, and then actually advise agents on, this is the right information this customer wants. This is the answer to their problem. So by that way, you can use the technology to actually make your humans smarter, which will be, which will have a benefit from a customer experience point of view, but also make those machines more human. So being able to, again, take all the data. It is about taking the data, analyzing the data, and using that analysis to, to make machines more human. So again, rather than, and it goes back to my epic, making things personalized in context. So if we can, you know, look and say, I can tell you my cell phone operator, if they did it, they could look back and say he's been with us 30 years and there's hardly a month go by he doesn't ring up and query about his bill, so we must be getting something wrong. What we could do to get his bill right so he didn't have to call up, and we could have machines going back with that analysis and giving me that advice. So they're my innovative technologies. So I'm just going to finish and come back to what I think out of all of that is that CX is about the customer journey. CX is not about handling one interaction. It's about putting the interactions in the context of a journey. So I say that CX is all about the sum of all interactions, and it has a big emotional impact. So you need to consider using things like natural language processing to understand customer sentiment post. You need that integration of data so you can see outcomes. So did somebody leave us? Did somebody buy more products? Those kind of things. So look at every interaction in the context of that journey. And I'm going to finish with making a statement. You know, technology has the power to change everything. Are you ready? And of course, many of you may have seen this or may not have seen this, but here we have Amazon taking over the retail industry, taking over supermarkets. So what do Amazon do? They open a supermarket, which seems contrary to their whole policy. But if you look at the supermarket, and you know, I've had somebody tell me a bit more details behind this, it's a completely different supermarket. There's no check-in, check-out. There's no queues, there's nothing. You go in and you basically pick up the things that you want, and you put them in your bag and you walk out, and on the way to the car, your app goes ping, you've just spent this amount of money. That's it. That's the new shopping experience. That's an experience. Now, when it didn't work, it created an enormous amount of interactions back to Amazon saying, I put this back, I didn't buy it. I didn't take it out. And so they began to understand some of the problems with their technology, the change in their technology and work. So again, remember, everything from marketing to sales to service, it's all part of that customer journey. Understand all those interactions and handle every new interaction in that context. I get off my hobby horse. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Richard. And we're going to have a look at those 5 technologies you just talked about. So which 5 of these emerging technologies do you think is most suitable for your company? So do you think it's going to be video, robotic process automation, AI or machine learning? Do you think it's going to be bots, or do you think it's going to be the Internet of Things? So which one do you think is going to be most suitable for your company? If you'd like to vote on that now. Tracy, any thoughts on which one of these would be likely come out top?
I think this is a tricky one, Jonty. Each of those, I think, are going to appeal to different verticals. For example, video would appeal to, say, service providers, help with operating things. Robotic optimization, I could see probably a mobile phone provider using robotic process of automation for things like closing down accounts where you have to access several different systems. Internet of Things, we're talking about devices or components that could be IP enabled. So I think that's going to be difficult.
Right, well, let's have a look. You mentioned robotic process automation, which is indeed tied for the top marks with bots. We've discussed a lot about bots. We haven't discussed much about robotic process automation in the chat room. So if there's any thoughts on that, that's the place to put that in. 23% machine learning and coming up with video and the Internet of Things. Video always seems to be just around the corner, but doesn't necessarily seem to move on there. Any surprises, Richard?
I'm quite surprised that bots is actually come out that high. You know, as I've said, but again, it's a reflection. This whole customer engagement, customer experience market is it's changing so fast that I think organisations are looking at these things, and they will be very popular, I think, in the future.
And Sarah said chatbots for us also help people, make people aware that they can self-serve on the website, so which is quite interesting. So sort of rather niche use of chatbots. Jamie said, since we're USA based, we have an issue running in dual languages, Spanish and English, and the crossovers have led to delays in application of voice-driven options over text, because we have to double down in many ways. How does this impact businesses in other places? I guess one of the challenges, Richard, is that voice is quite prominent in the European languages, but outside of those tends to struggle a bit more.
I mean, and this comes back to, I mean, if you're a global organization, then you've got a problem of dealing with language in every which way. And I don't think, you know, handling customer interactions is any different. So, you know, a challenge for organizations such as Tracy is being able to support those languages for global organizations. So
I agree. We certainly have customers that are multilingual, multinational, and the way we address that within the Puzzle platform is we create different queues based on what region those requests are coming from. So I would suggest that maybe what Jamie could do is create an IVR to feed the chat bot interaction and to drive it to the correct area within the platform.
Indeed. Well, we've had a comment in from Demetrius on the subject of robotic process automation. He said RPA is the biggest opportunity for us. We've managed to save 2,400 hours for the last 6 months, and it helps us to operate daily. We've managed to improve our growth while retaining the same level of employees. I certainly think one of the nice things about robotic process automation is that all too often the customer owns the process. So with things like a mortgage application, effectively it can move through the organization very slowly and it can get stuck, where the customer is often the person who phones up to what's happened, and then they look up and say, oh yes, it's been waiting there. Whereas I think the robotic process automation will say it's stuck there. We'd perhaps better escalate it back to someone to move it on, which is very good. Let's have a look. I think we've got one more opinion. Pippa said, we operate a number of services and use web chat increasingly, and less for complex contact. We're currently looking at the areas we could use chatbots. However, we'll be focusing more on the simple tasks and questions. Well, we've reached the top of the hour. That's all that we've got time for now. So if you'd like to put into the chat room today, what did you like best about our webinar? We want to share with you the winning tip, and that has come in from Sarah. So we'll be sending out a bottle of champagne to you. We do have a survey when you leave the webinar, if you'd like to fill that in as you lead the webinar. And if you'd like a demonstration of the Puzzle omnichannel solution, please fill in the box when you leave the webinar survey, and I'm sure that can be arranged for you. You can watch a replay and get the slides later on this afternoon. That's at callcenterhelper.com/recorded webinars. We're going to be look back next week where we're looking at the best KPIs for your contact center. Just like to say thank you to our two speakers. Richard Snow from Ventana Research, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and hope everyone found it useful.
Excellent, and thank you to Tracy Hendy from Puzzle as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone, and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks then. Bye-bye.
Bye.